Well, folks, Nathan here from Family Protection Ministries. Hope you're having a good day. I am here to report to you on a number of different stories and to give you an update on the legislature here in California. So thanks for joining us today, and let's get into it. Welcome to the Front Line with FPM, where we talk about California politics, homeschool freedom, parental rights, and the family. I'm your host, Nathan Pierce, and thanks for joining us today. Let's jump right in and see what's going on here on the Front Line. All right, so I want to start off today with an update on the legislature. They have adjourned from their session this year, and they are no longer passing bills, and so that is a huge relief. That's good. No new surprises came up at the end there, so we're grateful for that, very grateful for that. We do have the next session starting up here in December 2nd. They will be back at it here in California, but it won't necessarily be the same folks at it again, because between now and then is the general election, November 5th. November 5th is a very important day because that is when many of our legislators are up for re-election. And you can make a difference by voting and encouraging others to vote and encouraging folks to vote in a manner that benefits the family. In other words, vote for legislators that will make decisions to put power back in the hands of parents, to keep power in the hands of parents, and to stop making government bigger to take the place of parents in California. So this is very important. It's November 5th is the election day. I would encourage you to find out everything you can about local and state and federal elections, all those offices that will be getting voted on November 5th. So be sure to do your homework on that, and I would encourage you to get others active on that as well. I would encourage you to engage with your church. The folks at your church may or may not be interested in elections, but they ought to be. As citizens of heaven, we have an obligation to do what is best for the culture around us and to point people to truth. And that is something that we need to do in politics just as in every other area of life. So I would encourage you, this is not a place or a time to be stepping aside and letting somebody else make the decisions for you, for your children, and for your grandchildren. It's time to take action. It's time to vote. It's time to do research before you vote. And it's time to engage other people so that they will know that it matters to get involved in elections. So hopefully you were able to get some good training this summer on getting involved in elections or getting involved in making a difference politically. We were involved in a number of events. The most recent was Homeschool Freedom Day down in San Diego. Thanks to everyone who came to that. It was a huge success. I really appreciated those that came to speak as well as those who came to learn. And it was really an incredible blessing of an event. So I was encouraged by that. I want to thank both our sponsors as well as the speakers that came, and it was just a really good and encouraging time for me, and I think a lot of folks were blessed by being there. A number of folks told me that they were glad to have brought their children because they were encouraged that they were able to have their high schoolers learn about some of the things that have been fought for on their behalf so that they could homeschool, so that it's not just homeschooling is this thing that we can take for granted, because many have come before us to fight for our freedoms, and we need to do the same so that our freedoms are there for future generations. So I'll put some information about our next Homeschool Freedom Day when that comes out on our website, but in the meantime you can take a look at your calendar and mark it for January 29th and 30th when our Capital Day is coming up here in 2025. January 29th and 30th, and 2025, that is our Capital Day here in Sacramento. We'd love to see you there. It'll be a great opportunity for folks to come together and not only learn about the legislative process and meet legislators, but also to put into practice some things that you have learned about how homeschool freedom works. and to go and share that information with legislators, including your own. And we do need folks to sign up for this so that we can have a successful event, because our event of Capital Day relies on homeschool families from all across California, every corner of the state, to come together and present information about homeschooling to our legislators and their staff. We visit all 120 legislative offices here in Sacramento for Capital Day, and many of these offices have never met a homeschool family. So it's really a unique opportunity for you to make a huge difference. And every year, folks come away with a excitement that they have really learned not only how the process works, but how they can make a difference and get involved. So with that, let's move on to a couple of stories in the news recently. These, some good, some bad. A couple of stories from Washington Post and a couple from Fox News. I'll go ahead and start with this one in Louisiana. In Louisiana, the Louisiana Governor, this is published Fox News August 28th, 2024. Louisiana Governor issues back-to-school order banning critical race theory in K-12 public classrooms. So this is a story about how the Louisiana Governor is saying, we're not going to be teaching these ridiculous things in our public schools anymore, K through 12. And he's taking a stand for this. I'm sure that he's going to get, and already has been getting, a lot of flack for this, but this is somebody who is taking a stand and really holding the line against some instruction and brainwashing that's been going on in the public schools all over our country, and he's wanting it to end in Louisiana. So good for him, and that can serve as a encouragement to all of us that not all things are going badly in our country. There are people that are good, that are wanting to do what's right, that are standing up for what's right, and that are pulling things in the direction of truth and righteousness. So I would encourage you to get involved in something politically, whether it's local, federal, or state, where you can get involved, you can build a relationship, you can have an impact, because something like this, governor in Louisiana making a decision like this, can come from it. Next, Texas. This is reported by Fox News, August 24th. Texas school district adopts policy that teachers must use pronouns consistent with students' biological sex. How about that? So this school district has created this new policy, and parents must be notified if a student wants to use a name or pronoun different from what is consistent with their birth certificate. So this school district, this is at the local level. So we just talked about the governor of Louisiana. Now we're talking about a local school district. This is, again, public schools we're talking about here. We're not talking about private homeschooling. We're talking about public schools. But this has an impact on all of us because it has an impact on our culture. In Texas, this local school district adopted this policy that teachers must use pronouns consistent with students' biological sex, and parents must be notified if a student wants to use a name or pronoun different from what is consistent with their birth certificate. This is in Texas. It is a local school district that did this. Now, we've had some back and forth here in California, as you know, we've reported over the last year, of local school districts creating policies and taking a stand on something, and then the state government saying, no, you can't do that. Well, in this case, this school district, it's a local school district, has taken a stand on the issue of pronouns in Texas, and that's a good thing. We need more school districts to step up and take a stand for this right thing, this speaking truth about who people are, using appropriate pronouns for people based on their biological sex. That just makes sense. So that took place in Texas. So far, it hasn't been struck down, but we'll see what happens. And we can be encouraged by people taking a stand like this. And we should do more of this here in California and get engaged and involved in that here in California. Next, published by Washington Post, Karina Elwood, August 19th, a judge in a Virginia district can't block The judge said that the Virginia district can't block transgender student from girls' tennis team. So a local school district passed a policy and said this transgender student cannot participate in the girls' tennis team. Well, a judge ruled that that's not okay, and that he's throwing that out and saying that policy is no good, and that this federal judge is saying he's agreeing with the ACLU in this case and saying that it is right and good for us to support a transgender student wanting to play on the team of the opposite sex. Now, this has been an ongoing issue here in California, as you know. Hopefully, we'll see some continued fights on this and not just to completely give in. But again, this is a public school matter, and we can see our culture battling over this issue. It's not a done deal, folks. This is something that we can engage in today and make a difference because there is a battle going on. It's not over. This is something that's ongoing, and we need to engage in it and support those that are taking a stand in this fight and support those that are standing up for truth and righteousness. So anytime you find out about one of these cases where there's a battle going on with a transgender student or a student wanting to use different pronouns, and the school district says one thing, or the principal is having battles with the parent-teacher union or the school board, and then they have a battle with the state, we need to get engaged and we need to be on the right side on these things, because it's our lack of engagement, our lack of involvement that allows these things to go the wrong way. And it's like a runaway train. The more steam gets built up, the faster this thing is going down the road in the wrong direction, and we need to rein it in. Let's be always putting our hands on the brakes on these things and pulling the train the other way in the direction of truth and righteousness. Now, lastly, I want to share this story that, again, and I won't go into it too much, but this story in the Washington Post. A school cop admitted to sexually abusing 2 students, and he got probation. Now, this guy actually pled guilty to some crimes here, and he got nothing more than probation. And it's a very long story, and it links to multiple other stories because there's been an ongoing investigation here. But there's been some really interesting developments here about this. The first thing I want to point out with this story is that the court system and the society where this is taking place, this is in Richland County, it's in South Carolina, is taking these abuse cases in public schools so lightly that when a school policeman is abusing students, he gets nothing more than probation. And this is wrong. This is our culture saying this is not a serious thing. We don't need to worry about this too much. And this is where our culture is going, and we need to recognize that our society is turning a blind eye to this kind of thing happening to our children. And it's bizarre to me that we have allowed this to go this far, to where we're just giving a cop probation for this kind of abuse. It's ridiculous. But that's the case. The second thing I want to point out here is that this is not an isolated incident. This happened repeatedly in this particular school in South Carolina. But it's also happening across the country. In fact, the Washington Post even acknowledges this. The Washington Post even mentions that there's a number of things that they have been researching on this topic that they've done an investigation into. Here's what the Washington Post said. Bradley's sentence of probation was handed down one day after a Washington Post investigation revealed that the Justice Department and many law enforcement agencies and school systems across the country have failed to take basic steps to prevent school misconduct, sexual misconduct, and root out abusive school cops. The Post found that Richland County School and law enforcement officials dismissed or failed to thoroughly investigate years of sexual misconduct complaints against Bradley. That's the gentleman in this particular case in South Carolina. The first report of inappropriate behavior was made in 2010, but Bradley was not arrested until 2019. That's 9 years later. And all during this time, as this story goes into detail on, this school cop was abusing kids, whether off campus or in his office on the school campus. Now, I mentioned that there's a problem when our culture doesn't do anything more than give somebody probation for sexually abusing children. But this is happening in a school. This is a person that is employed by a school. And that's a dangerous place to send children. So I hope that you're aware of this kind of thing that's happening in our country, where the public schools are turning a blind eye to this kind of behavior in our schools, in our public schools. It is a dangerous place to send children to. And we need to take these things more seriously, not only to protect our own children and not putting them there, but also to protect the other children in our culture by helping to speak up for truth and say, this is not okay. We need to stop this kind of thing, and we need to put real punishment for people that are doing this kind of thing, attacking our children and abusing them. So that's kind of a ridiculous thing that's been going on in our society, and it continues on. And at the same time, accusations are made that homeschoolers are the ones abusing their children. And that's the place that we need to focus. Statistics show, as we've mentioned before here on this podcast, that studies, those that have been done on abuse compared between public schools and private homeschools and homeschool students, there is not much of a difference. And if there is, the difference is that more abuse happens in public schools. So it's another reason to be grateful for the freedom that we have to homeschool, particularly here in California. We are so glad that in a state where we love to regulate things, we like to pass lots of laws, and we like to have all kinds of restrictions on every area of life, and yet we still have a tremendous amount of freedom when it comes to educating our children and doing what is right before God in our teaching them the truth of God's law, the scripture, the gospel, and being allowed to say things to our kids that, frankly, many people would like to make illegal. So thanks for watching. Glad you could join us today. Remember to vote in the November 5th election, and share with your neighbors and your friends that they need to vote too. Get involved. And hopefully you can come to Capitol Day on January 29th and 30th, 2025. See you next time. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Front Line with FPM. For more information about the topics we discuss here, check out Family Protection Ministries at fpmca.org and subscribe to our channel.